Teachers of Reddit, what was the most BS answer you've seen on a test, quiz, essay, etc.? Question, describe the chemical difference between H2O and CO2. Answer, H2O is hot water, because the H stands for hot. CO2 is cold water, because the C stands for cold. Not a teacher, but he was one of the students I graduated with. Essay prompt, write an essay on something that isn't an art, but treat it like an art. Should take 1 page. X, the art of tying your shoes. His essay, the art of writing a short essay. The art of writing a very short essay is quite simple, use this as an example. Teacher's response, I don't know if this is brilliant or lazy. I once used the wrong formula on a physics question but also fucked up the calculation and ended up with the correct answer. The professor asked to see me after class to tell me that at first he had marked it wrong because he thought I had peeked and wrote someone else's answer at the end of my gibberish, but once he worked through my work realized how I got the answer I did. He gave me half credit because he had never seen it happen before, so there's that. Not a teacher but a former student. I went to a Catholic high school. Our Algebra 2 teacher was super religious and wanted to be a religion teacher. If you put Jesus as the answer to any question, he would give you half credit for being technically right because Jesus is the answer to everything. Not a teacher but I remember my friend's answer in a chemistry exam at school. Suggest a name for hydrocarbon B. Paul. Question, if the highest elevation on a map is 1050 feet and the lowest elevation is 515 feet, what is the relief? Answer, that we don't have to do maps anymore. Fucking Larry. I once asked for a signature of a family member and got a drawing of a paw. Boy in my class tried to forge his parents' signature on his field trip form but just wrote mom in fancy letters. Since I'm grading tests as we speak, let me pull one from the stack. Question, describe how glaciers were involved in the formation of the Great Lakes. Answer, glaciers were involved with the Great Lakes by forming them. Class, environmental law. Question, what is NPDES? Students answer, an acronym. I gave him half credit for being a smart ass. During my last year of high school I took calculus. Our teacher was an insanely smart guy who knew almost anything. Unfortunately for him it was last semester teaching at my school. Something about how he graded compared to the rest of the school and the board not liking it, I'll never know for sure. Anyway, as I was saying, he taught us more than just calculus, astronomy, finances, physics, and anything we were just curious about that day. He was a great guy and I enjoyed going to that class every day. He still had to give us quizzes and tests like any other teacher, but he didn't grade very well, mostly because he just didn't care. He knew we were learning what we were wanting to learn and he was happy with that. For our final exam though, he gave us a 4-page exam with the most difficult math problems I had ever seen. Half the stuff we hadn't even covered. My entire class was in shock. Why in the hell would he do this to us? But then he gave us the slyest smile I had ever seen, paused for a moment as the entire class held their breath, and quietly said the most forgiving words. If you don't know what you are doing, draw me the best hand turkey you can possibly draw. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I got an A, in calculus, on a hand turkey I worked on for an hour and a half. Can't imagine why the board would disapprove. My first year teaching 9th grade English, I had my students write an essay that was basically an analysis of a novel they chose. One kid handed in an essay that was very obviously plagiarized, and the formatting looked familiar. I looked the book up on Wikipedia, and sure enough, he had just copied and pasted the first couple sections verbatim from the entry for Goodbye Mr. Chips. I wrote 100 really big on the top of the page, and then wrote a bunch of stuff on the bottom of the page about how mature his analysis was and how hard he must have worked. I wrote turnover at the bottom of the page, and on the back of the paper I wrote just kidding really big, with an explanation of why his grade was actually a 0. When I handed the essays back, this kid got so excited that he had gotten such a good grade and fooled his dumb shit teacher that he didn't read the back and handed it to a friend to show off. I knew his friend took the time to read the back when I heard "You're a freaking idiot" from across the room. A friend of mine is a high school English teacher, and once assigned his students a persuasive essay: take a stand on an issue and write an essay supporting that stand, citing specific evidence. One student chose to do his on Stone Cold Steve Austin is the best wrestler who ever lived. Now, that's a dubious topic, but one could see how you could still attempt to write a good essay on that, citing his wild popularity, impact on the sport, etc. Nope, this kid basically spent a few pages rehashing his catchphrases. If anyone tries to mess with Stone Cold, he'll whoop their ass. The best though was the last line of the essay, which just closed with Stone Cold Steve Austin is the best goddamn wrestler who ever lived. 'Cause Stone Cold said so. Question: why did Mao and his communist revolutionaries go through the mountains during the Long March? Answer: to avoid the mines of Moria. A student was given a test that included a picture of a stalk of celery in a jar of water. The point was to discuss that water flows up the stalk to the leaves, blah blah blah. One student said, "I don't know, I did not learn about celery." While I, like most folks in this thread, am not a teacher, I did have an affinity for creative rhetoric as a student. And it was never more evident than when the time came for us to apply for college scholarships. The high school where I attended my junior and senior years was progressive in a number of ways, the most notable of those being that everything, with very few exceptions, was done on computers. There was also a significant focus on college applications and essays, and a member of the faculty devoted entirely to helping our 80-something graduating students with the admissions process. One aspect of this woman's job was to assist in finding scholarships for which each of us would be eligible. And apparently, she felt that I should apply for the one entitled Overcoming Adversity. Now, while I did later discover that everyone had been sent that particular scholarship, I took special note of it because I, a white male from an upper-middle-class family full of folks with doctorate degrees, wasn't eligible for anything else. And besides, the only requirement was a 3-paragraph essay. So, more in an effort to amuse myself than to actually accomplish something, I decided to write what I hoped would be a heartfelt and seemingly earnest description of the hardships that I'd experienced. There was only one problem: I'd never had any such hardships. Oh, sure, there had been some tough times and scary situations, but nothing, by that point, beyond almost dying during an ill-advised caving expedition, which I didn't think would qualify. In fact, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I'd never even had the opportunity to overcome adversity. Just like that, it hit me. Less than half an hour later, I had crafted my essay. The title, perhaps appropriately, was Overcoming a Lack of Adversity. In it, I described how I'd never had the privilege of being underprivileged, and how I'd been deprived of the chance to rise above my limitations as a result. I further explained that if I was given the scholarship, it would count not only as someone recognizing my handicap, but also as giving me the chance to conquer it. A couple of months later, my principal rolled his eyes as he announced me as the recipient of the scholarship in question. Evidently I was the only one who had applied. One exam had a question on probability. It described a simple game involving a coin flip, and asked what is the fair price you would charge your friend to play this game? One student carefully calculated the correct value for the game's expectation value, $1.20. Then, he concluded, "The fair price I will charge my friend to play this game is $2, because I want to make a profit." I had a friend doing a media course in college. He had some bullshit essay that he had to write, and the topic was "Is a computer a machine? God, beef and other mysteries." It was 2 pages long, and concluded with the line "If cows don't exist, then God does exist, which means cows do in fact exist, therefore a computer is not a machine." He actually passed the paper. I was a TA for a very introductory physics class last year. The question was something like, Jane has a mass of 42 kilograms, and is tied up on a platform on one side of a 30 meters room 20 meters in the air. Tarzan has a mass of 60 kilograms, and grabs onto a vine swinging from the middle of the room when he stands 20 meters in the air. If he starts at an initial velocity of 0, what is Tarzan's velocity at his lowest point? What is Tarzan's and Jane's velocity as they are exiting the building? What I received for an answer. To the window. To the wall. Till the sweat drips down my balls. All them bitches crawl. Jane can suck my cock. Oh ski motherfucker. Oh ski goddammit. I graded standardized tests one year, and one of the questions was about how to set up a garden to perform an experiment, any experiment, that shows you understand how experiments are designed. One kid actually got full credit, hit every one of the metrics, by setting up an experiment on what might get Sally to fuck him in the garden. It was something of a game for us to get to bring a particularly WTF answer to our team lead, and mine was at the top of the board for almost 2 weeks. I was a teaching assistant. As students were turning in an in-lecture quiz, our professor shouted to me over the din, so long as their answer to number 6 is something reasonable, give them credit. A student who had been struggling in the course suddenly hunched over and scribbled something on their quiz. I took the quizzes home for grading and reached the struggling student's quiz. She had literally written something reasonable for her answer to number 6. Rules are rules. I gave her full credit for the answer. On the final exam she concluded with the statement, "These are all reasonable answers just in case." I had a fellow classmate turn in a paper in Spanish class. He was a well-known moron. "Teacher, John, please come to the front of the classroom." "John, did you write this paper?" "John, yes, Señorita Lopez." "Teacher, John, are you sure you didn't use a translator on the internet or something?" "John, yes, Señorita Lopez." "Teacher, John, this is in French." "John, shit.